Just now we see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Hatha truth. Good morning, everyone. This is the last day of our 7-day Sesshin. So you're all looking bright-eyed, energetic. Huh? Bushy tail, bright-eyed, bushy tail. Yeah, all of that. So I'd like to give a Teisho this morning on the 5 Buddha families and transmuting negativity into wisdom. And this is this comes from the Vajrayana tradition, this teaching. So we have to sort of appreciate that there are these 3 large schools in Buddhism of Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. And we in the Zen school are in the Mahayana tradition, and we live by the vow, the Bodhisattva vow, to save all sentient beings, which is a wonderful, wonderful practice that we will always do all our lives. But when we approach Vajrayana, there's a little shift. And there's a sense in which being good bodhisattvas, we're kind of proud of ourselves. And kind of still a little stuck being a good boy or a good girl. We don't want to disappoint our parents or our teacher. And so the Vajrayana approach is we have to grow up a little more. And we have to relate to the raw and wild quality of energy in our emotions. We've learned it's absolutely necessary to go through the teachings of the Theravada tradition and be in the Mahayana tradition, which is what our lineage is, and to manage and regulate emotions and see how negative and destructive emotions can be when we act them out. But at this level of practice in the Vajrayana, we're now going to be a little bit more daring and brave and relate to the kind of the raw and wild quality of our emotions, because we're talking about transmuting negativity into wisdom. We're not using the word transforming. Transforming would imply that we're somehow getting rid of the emotion to become wise, that we have the emotion and we manage and regulate it, and then we get wisdom. But in this approach, the negativity is in the wisdom, and the wisdom is in the negativity, and they aren't separate. So by being brave and working with the raw kind of organic quality of our emotions, we transmute them. We find that we're transmuting them into what are called the 5 wisdom energies, the 5 Buddha families. Yeah. So maybe a few preliminary instructions about how we practice, how we should approach our practice here at the Zen Center. First, I think it's really important to be simple. Not simple-minded, but simple, genuine, sincere, wholehearted about our practice. The attitude towards our practice should be to be simple, without ambition. Mahasukha means great joy. We experience this great joy because we transcend hope and fear. We transcend pain and pleasure. And then the joy is here. It's a fundamental sense of freedom, a sense of humor, an ability to appreciate the ironic nature of ego. If you pay too much attention to your thoughts, they get solid and you start trying to categorize them, name them, and they start to take on their own kind of power or distraction. So it's important to be able to relate to our thoughts without letting them take us over, without feeding them, but also without denying them. There's some kind of balance in our practice. And our meditation is not viewed as any kind of journey to a goal. There's no expectation about any kind of happiness or peace that we're going to achieve because we're meditating. In other words, it's not regarded, this practice is not regarded as a vacation from irritation. You might find more irritations when you do this practice, not less. All the details, all the services, and all the things we do, the ritual, the way you have to do it, you know, and if you don't do it right, the teacher yells at you. But being simple in this way allows us to sort of experience the meditation not as such a big deal. It's not so solid, it's more transparent, so we can move through. We don't get stuck in the same way. We bear witness to the irritation and we move through it. And then all our complications and problems are more workable, right? We can even figure out eventually how to get the sound to work again. Boy, have I got a story to tell about that tonight in council circle. So we can laugh about our problems, right? That's actually the juicy part of our life are usually the problems and the irritations. So why should we, be avoiding all that? What a story you can tell when you have a problem. The other thing I would say about our practice is extremely fundamental and important is the importance of boredom. It's not possible to study Buddhism without opening to boredom. It's just it's absolutely not possible. The boredom is how you start to settle with your restlessness. You start to find that nothing is particularly happening in the meditation. If you bring too much ambition to the meditation, it just gets in the way. And so you discover that you're just breathing, when you're sitting, the analogy often in the tradition is you're kind of like a pig. You just sit there, you breathe, and you sit, But being a pig, you can actually be dignified. You find some kind of dignity in that. It's a little ironic. Pigs are very intelligent. And so is boredom. So the approach here is we shouldn't think of this practice as being somehow exotic, something that we got from the East. And even though the aesthetic is beautiful and wonderful, especially the Japanese aesthetic, we can all admire the Japanese. We shouldn't get too caught up in it either. It's not such a big deal. Practice should be ordinary, kind of like eating cereal, having breakfast without coffee. They had coffee this morning. They were so then the practice is actually working with our negativity. It's not running away from it. It's actually working with the irritation, working with our emotions. Usually, when we suffer and we experience pain, we tend to blame somebody else for it. Yeah, it's so fun to do that too, isn't it? It's so easy to do. I mean, oh my gosh. Don't get me started. I know how to do that. But if you take a little closer look, as we do when we're in a retreat like this, you can all of a sudden notice that that negativity could be kind of juicy. So negativity can be profound. In fact, if you're really bored, the negativity can be a kind of entertainment. It can stir us up. It can wake us up. Usually we have some philosophical rationale for justifying our suffering or our pain, avoiding it mostly. So the basic approach here is to be honest, sincere, genuine about being a human being and all our foibles and our neurosis and our issues and all that stuff. We're not getting rid of any of it. We're just making friends with it, so to speak. And then the surprising thing is that the wisdom is in the negativity, or at least in this approach it is, that I'm talking about today. The negativity is in each of these 5 wisdom energies. And it's not possible, it's absolutely not possible to experience the wisdom of any of these energies without experiencing the negativity as well. So we have to appreciate first the suffering and the negativity before we get to the good part, the 5 wisdom energies. So we have to start with the 6 realms of suffering, which is a very common teaching in all the Buddhist traditions. We have 6 styles of suffering, and I'll go through them one by one. And we could start with the hell realm. That's really juicy. In the hell realm, and I want you to appreciate that we can go through all 6 of these in the course of one day. But that you might have one particular one that you're more fond of than the others. Where you dwell for a longer period of time. So the hell realm is a place it's extremely claustrophobic. It's very confusing. There's so much aggression in the hell realm, it's almost solid aggression. And it's hot. And there's no relief from the heat. It's just constant fire. And it's just, everything is burning. But the anger in this environment doesn't seem to be yours. The environment itself is the anger, and you're stuck in it. and it just fills up the whole space. So it's very stuffy and claustrophobic. There's no room to breathe or relax or even act. You're just squished. You're just crushed by the heat and the aggression. The whole thing is completely overwhelming. And you try to eliminate your pain by having further aggression, but it doesn't work because it comes back and bites you in the butt. It's like a boomerang. It just keeps coming back and hitting you in the face. But you keep trying. You keep trying to act it out, project it out, and it just comes back and hits you every time. So the aggression just seems to get worse and worse, and there's no escape. And the whole space has just become solid anger, solid aggression. You can't even breathe, no gaps at all. This is traditionally symbolized as the sky and the earth is radiating red fire. The earth turns into a red hot iron. Now, what's interesting is usually in this realm, we create it through the outside world, through projections. We create it through relationships, whereas other realms might be more psychological and internal. So in the hell realm, you're trying to play games with something or someone. You're attempting to, but it keeps bouncing back on you. So there seems to be no room to communicate, which just feeds the irritation further. You're not playing for fun or enjoyment, but because you don't feel protected or secure. So you keep trying to find some kind of ground or reference point, and there doesn't seem to be any. The only reference point is anger, aggression, irritation, and it's solid all the way through. That's the hell realm. Fun, huh? And the next one is the hungry ghost realm, the pretas. In this realm, you're preoccupied with expanding, with consuming, becoming bigger. You essentially feel impoverished and unsubstantial, so you try to eat more, drink more, take more drugs, do something, consume more to fill up the space. So there's a constant sense of impoverishment and inadequacy. So if you see something beautiful, you want to claim it as your prize right away. So you're kind of preying on everything. You want to capture something for your social media post. You want to capture that photograph, that art piece. You want to own it. You want to possess it. You want to consume it. So this hunger is all-consuming. It's a entertainment, spiritual, intellectual, sensual. You're just consuming and trying to be bigger in the process because fundamentally you feel impoverished. And you're never satisfied. You eat, but you never even swallow the food. The picture of the hungry ghost is a being with a big, skinny neck and a big head and a kind of bloated stomach, like a starving child would have. And so you're always eating, but you can't swallow the food. It hurts because you got the skinny neck. So you never actually get the nourishment from the food. You're always eating but never satisfied. That's the hungry ghost realm. We have a whole service here. We haven't done it this Sesshin, where we feed the hungry ghost. The next realm is the animal realm. You understand I'm speaking of these metaphorically, not literally. I love animals. I'm sure you do too. But in this realm, animals are very serious, and they don't smile, and they don't have a sense of humor. They're blind to their own style. They just push forward. They just go, they have one gear, it's going forward. Survival, get the food, go. Like a pigeon. Very stubborn. The only thing you see is the goal, the food. And you're very serious about the whole thing. You have no sense of humor about it at all. It's a serious occupation, surviving. And you're continually adjusting situations to conform to your expectations. So there's a kind of stupidity in this style. You're not really stupid, but you're playing deaf and dumb. Because you'd prefer to follow rules if they're set up for you. You don't have to take any initiative. It's kind of the path of least resistance. You're just kind of following your ape instinct. And you can always justify whatever you're doing with some kind of rationale. Yeah, particularly concerned about being truthful as long as you can maintain your deception. So you're very stubborn, and your stupidity is actually very clever. But in a kind of fundamental way, you don't see the environment around you at all. You're just going forward, and seemingly you're very honest, sincere, and serious about whatever you're doing. So it's a kind of continual round of self-justifying activities, and you're not really able to relate to the messages that are coming towards you from the environment. You don't see your own style. You don't see yourself mirrored in other people. No sense of irony whatsoever. None. So you're just taken over by a constant demand to move from one thing to the next. And then we come to the next realm, the human realm. Now, the human realm is characterized by quite a bit of doubt, grasping. The mind is generally geared towards pleasure and happiness. It's in the human realm, we're very fussy about our styles and the things that we like and the things we don't like. So if you have a mate nearby, male or female, that you want to impress, you'll play your particular brand of music louder than you normally would, hoping that they'll hear it and they'll be, you're kind of showing off. And this is the human realm. We're constantly very fussy and picky, kind of frivolous about everything. This is jumping from one thing to the next, kind of confused, kind of wanting to win, want to achieve something, have some high ideal so we can impress others. I want to be kind of heroic, build a monument to ourselves. Because fundamentally, you're preoccupied with what you lack. So you're constantly comparing, selecting, choosing. You become preoccupied with your thoughts, your desires, and you really don't learn anything at all. You're just busy being busy. You're not actually getting anything done. You're just being busy because that's the way of preoccupying yourself. All of these styles are ways of avoiding spaciousness. They're all ways of preoccupying ourselves because the spaciousness of enlightenment is actually irritating. So we reach for something to distract ourselves, and we have these 6 styles are the different ways we do that. And there's the realm of the jealous gods, which has to do with paranoia. You're always comparing, you're always trying to win, you are competing to win, you are efficient, and you're very intelligent. This is often associated with wind. It's a speedy, kind of aggressive energy, kind of like the hell realm. But you're always comparing, and you're always competing, and everything is about winning. And it's a very intelligent place. You have kind of eyes in the back of your head. You strategize. And if you have to, you're willing to be very direct and come out swinging to get your way. You could be very aggressive in this. The paranoia creates a kind of aggression, and the perception that you need to fight to maintain your reference point or your ground. But fundamentally, you refuse to learn anything. Because basically you don't trust anyone. You're paranoid. You're looking around all the time to see where you're going to get, where the next attack is going to come from. And then the last realm is the heaven realm. You would think the heaven realm would be a good place to be, but actually it isn't. That's bad news. Not even the heaven realm is a place that you want to hang. Well, you want to hang out in the heaven realm, but that's the problem. You can't. And so there's a constant struggle to stay in the heaven realm because it's a kind of fantasy. And so then you create all kinds of techniques about your spiritual practice and have breakthroughs. And you can have a kind of false kensho with this kind of practice. You can push yourself and hyperventilate or something and have a great experience and tell everyone about it. And so, but it doesn't last. That's the problem. You have to keep really struggling to keep this heaven realm there. It is a pleasurable realm. It doesn't particularly suffer. It's not compassionate particularly. It's about being absorbed. So those of you that have been to Laguna Beach in California and seen the art galleries there, or Maui is a very good place to see the heaven realm. You go in those art galleries and they have those velvet paintings of whales and dolphins jumping through rainbows. That's the heaven realm. La, 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 la. So the problem is you're constantly slipping down into the jealous God realm. And the analogy for this realm is a silkworm. The silkworm just binds itself, keeps kind of sewing itself up until it dies. Basically, it just sews itself and suffocates itself with its own thread. So the heaven realm can be very seductive, and we can get occupied with all kinds of techniques for building ourselves up, better, more wealth, more health, more spiritual experiences. We can collect spiritual things, very spiritual, materialistic approach, generally speaking. It's not particularly painful until it is, until you're disillusioned. Then it's really painful. But you kind of put that off till the very end. So it's a good ride as long as it lasts, but then it doesn't. So. And then the karmic situation usually starts to bring you all kinds of irritations. So those are the 6 realms. And that will lead us into the 5 Buddha families, believe it or not. Because the 5 Buddha families are all associated with each of these realms. Now, the Tibetan teaching about the 5 wisdom energies is that they basically make up the energies of the universe, and that enlightenment is not monolithic. Enlightenment manifests and emerges as 5 kinds of energy. So the other teaching in this tradition is that we are basically born with one family style. And we're usually a little embarrassed about our own style. So if you see yourself in a video like I'm seeing myself now because we got Zoom, it's a little disconcerting. I look kind of old and fat. That's a little embarrassing. If you hear your voice on a recorder, you think, wow, do I really sound like that? Is my voice that mouthy? And you're embarrassed. We're kind of embarrassed by our own style, but it's actually transparent. Everyone else sees it, except us. And so we try to cover it over. We try to pretend that we have another style that would be more fun, or that we think would be more impressive to others. But actually, we're kind of stuck with our style. And the reason this is important, now, I learned this teaching from Trungpa over 40 years ago. I've been working with it all this time. It works for me. It might not work for you. This is not set in stone. There are all kinds of enneagrams. There are other systems for how we think about human beings, and this one may or may not work for you. It works for me pretty much. I think this energetic style is a kind of a level of who we are beneath our persona and our personality, so that we all have different personalities, but some of us will share the same style of energy. It's a little deeper. It's more than your identity. It's something that goes beyond that. And the reason I think this is actually a very useful teaching, if it works for you, is that if you're not aware of your own style, you will tend to project it onto others. So if you have a Buddha family style that is very spacious and kind of passive, when you see another person with a Buddha family style that's more aggressive than yours, you will think, wow, that person is really messed up. They're just too angry and aggressive. They need to sit more meditation. Or if you're an aggressive style and you meet somebody that has a more spacious style, to say, boy, that person is really spaced out. They need to study the Dharma some more. They need to read Dogen. Whatever. The other reason I think these family styles are important is that when you begin, and it's not that you're going to see every person clearly as whatever their style is. Sometimes you see it, and sometimes a person doesn't, it's not very clear. And when it's not, I don't try to push it. I don't think about it too much unless it's obvious to me. But when it is clear to me what someone's style is, it gives me a way to have a little bit more compassion and skill in working with them, because I can see where they get stuck more easily. And I can see where I get stuck as well when I'm more familiar with my particular style. So I'm going to go through each of these Buddha family styles. And the important thing, again, to appreciate about each of these is they have a negative quality. They have an emotion, a negativity, a unawakened quality that goes with the energy. And the idea here is that if you, now, first of all, we may have a basic style, but we can, as we practice, we learn to work with all of the energies. And some will be less, some of them we won't feel like we're very close to, or they might even feel threatening to us. But the idea is that we're using all these energies throughout the day, even though we have a primary style. Yeah? So, starting with the hell realm, we can start with Vajra. It's known as the Vajra Buddha family. And each of these families, as I said, is characterized by an emotion, and the 6 realms are associated with them. There are many kind of symbolic things that are associated with each family, but we don't need to go into all those. What I want you to get is a sense of energetically what these are, or psychologically what they're like. So the Vajra family is associated with the hell realm. The anger that is predominant in that family style is anger. The Vajra wisdom energy is one of great sharpness and precision, very bright, intelligent energy. Often people that are translators or scholars might have a tendency to be in that family. You can characterize people we know, or we can even characterize art and movies by these Buddha family styles. So when I think of art, I think of Andrew Wyeth. Vajra has a lot to do with texture. You think of the egg tempera paintings that Andrew Wyeth did, lots of texture. In movies, I think of Ingmar Bergman, kind of a wintry, icy quality about Vajra. It's often a kind of cold energy, it can be. It can be a little disembodied. Vajra's style of clothing is usually kind of clean lines, clean cut. Might be minimalist kind of aesthetic. Bob Dylan is a good example of Vajra. Really sharp. Cutting. And if you're in an organization and you have a board of directors for a nonprofit, or you have a business and you're trying to figure something out and you have a problem and everyone's confused, you want a Vajra person in the room. Because when everyone else is confused, that Vajra person is going to come down and hit the nail on the head, and you're going to be really grateful for that sharpness. They're going to break through the confusion and say something that's helpful and clear. And the ironic thing about Vajra is, even though it can take many perspectives and be very clear and intelligent, it can often get stuck on an ideology and be fairly rigid around that, and then get irritated and angry when people disagree with that. So that's Vajra. Trungpa had a lot of Vajra energy. He was brilliant. Brilliant. And the Vajra family is associated with winter, and water is the element that goes with it. very precise. Vajra is concerned with logic. It's not about, doesn't tolerate sloppiness when it comes to language and logic. It's about being precise. And then we move to the hungry ghost realm. We're now talking about a different Buddha family, the Ratna family, which is associated with fall in the color orange and is a very rich, large energy, enriching energy, and has works with the emotion of pride, which can be both negative and clear, depending on the state of mind of the person in that energy. So Ratna energy can be very mothering and nurturing and very loving and helpful and soothing. But when it gets stuck, it can become very claustrophobic. And it's kind of, and that's the sense of this, when you think about the hungry ghost realm, it's just consuming everything. And so it becomes claustrophobic. It's like a big vat of honey that's just pouring all over you. The Ratna doesn't know when to stop. It's very happy to take up the center of attention, and it often will go too far. I have a dear friend at Zen Center Los Angeles. I won't mention his name, but he was a Ratna family. He was a very funny guy, and he never knew when to stop. He'd always go too far with his humor. He'd always end up saying something off color. He couldn't stop himself. And I saw him many years ago when Sensei and I were working with Bernie, and we were living in Santa Barbara, and I went down for some event at the Zen Center of Los Angeles, and he was the MC. And a Ratna person makes a very good MC for an event. I saw him, I said, oh, and I was so happy to see him, and he was talking, and I thought, he's really matured and grown up a lot. Has really changed, and then he went too far. That's Ratna. They can't help themselves. They just want to take up a lot of attention. They have enormous amount of confidence. Ratna has a real, very attractive confidence, but that confidence, when it's neurotic, becomes brittle, becomes a kind of conceit that I can do everything myself. And it can then become kind of narcissistic and not helpful. So that's what Ratna struggles with, a kind of almost the ironic thing about Ratna is that it actually feels internally unsubstantial. So Ratna people will tend to actually get big physically. His Holiness Karmapa was a Ratna family, and I met Karmapa the first year he came to America to do the black hat ceremony in Boulder, and at the time I was caretaking a retreat property for Trungpa in southern Colorado, and I had a Ford truck at the time, and he came down with his retinue of monks, and they were all in the back of the truck. He got in the truck next to me. He took up over half the seat. He's this big guy, and he was like being around Santa Claus. And when you were around him, you always felt happy. He was like so joyful, and he was Ratna, big energy, big, beautiful, proud, confident energy. Very reassuring to be around that. Then the next realm is the animal realm, which is usually associated with the Buddha family. The Buddha family actually gets associated with both the animal realm and the heaven realm in the 6 realms. So the Buddha family is a very spacious. Notice that all of these families, except for the Buddha family, tend to, part of their neurosis is the way the strategies they have for avoiding the irritation of too much space. So the Vajra family will fill up the space with aggression. The Ratna family will fill up the space with consuming and oozing and just fill it up because again, there's a kind of a basic irritation with the spaciousness. So in the Tibetan system, they have two archetypes that are said to appear in the Bardo realm when we die. One is the wrathful deity. I'm sure you've seen pictures of them. And they're both expressions of compassion and enlightened energy. The wrathful deity is there to wake you up because you're not paying attention, shake you. And the other deity is a peaceful deity, like a Tara figure. But that's also, what happens is we actually find often the spaciousness, the Ratna, the Tara figure is too spacious. And the spaciousness is also threatening and irritating. So that's the kind of reaction that many of the Buddha families have and their style and their neurosis often comes out of the way, the strategies they have for dealing with the irritation of the boredom and the spaciousness. But the Buddha family doesn't particularly have a problem with the spaciousness. Now, the Buddha family is quite spacious and accommodating to almost any of the other families, but it's a little on the dull side. And it's very good at playing deaf and dumb, like the animal realm that we're talking about. The Buddha family will take the path of least resistance. So when I was caretaking this retreat property for Trungpa, people would come on these like 3-month retreats and they'd bring all kinds of food. And a person that was in, let's say, the Padma family, which I'll talk about in a minute, would bring all kinds of fancy food, you know, and when I would go up to, they have something, and I go up their cabin, I'd see they fix their meal and they prepare it beautiful and put a wildflower on the table, and that's Padma family. But this particular person that was in the Buddha family came on retreat, just bought cases of Campbell's soup. That was it, you know. And the way he would fix a meal was like, and this is very much a Buddha family style. Say, why do I have to take the soup out of the can? That, you know, then I have to wash the dishes. I'm just going to cook the soup in the can, and I'm going to eat it in the can. Then I won't have to wash the dishes. That's Buddha family style. Why have a lot of just eat the same thing every time? The path of least resistance. That's Buddha family style. Deaf and dumb kind of energy. It can be kind of spaced out. So if a Buddha family is, you know, you're in an apartment and you're a Buddha family type of person and you hear someone that's like killing their wife next door and they're screaming, you know, you'll just turn the TV volume up louder, you know, so you don't have to deal with it, you know. That's the Buddha family style. Really good at being in the animal realm and just kind of, you know, being deaf and dumb, kind of putting its head in the sand. That's Buddha family. And then the human realm is characterized by Padma. And Padma, the Buddha is the one family not associated with a season. It's associated with the color blue or sometimes white. And then the Padma family is associated with spring, the color red. And it's a very juicy and seductive energy. Think of Fellini movies. They're very Padma. Padma is very sensual. Jason is a Padma kind of person. Maizumi Roshi was Padma. Trungpa had a lot of that seductive energy. Bernie had a lot of that Padma energy. Very seductive energy. If you're at a party, they're the life of the Padma person is the life of the party. Everyone wishes they were Padma. They're people persons. They have fun. Everyone loves them. And if you're at a party, the Padma person could be standing in the corner doing nothing, but it's like a moth to the flame, man. Everyone, their energy is going like this, and they're not doing anything. They're just standing there. So it's a very wonderful, integrative people person kind of energy. It's said that the Padma energy integrates the other families. It tends to be on the artistic side. A lot of artists tend to be Padma. It can be charismatic. I think of Bill Clinton as a kind of Padma type of person. Good with people. And but also Padma gets confused and doesn't like to be alone. It's a human realm, likes to be with other people. Yeah. And then we come to the jealous God realm, which is associated with karma Buddha family. It's a very efficient energy. It's a doing energy. It's aggressive like Vajra, but it's more aggressive in the sense of being efficient and getting things done. So it organizes, often is involved in social grassroots organizations, organizing things. It's a kind of self-fulfilling energy. The people that aren't in that family will just be amazed at how a karma person can come into a situation and get everything done in a very short amount of time, where it would take others much more time and they wouldn't get it done as well. So it's a kind of has a self-fulfilling quality about it. But because it's so directed to the goal, it tends to not have peripheral vision, which creates the paranoia. So karma people are usually almost always comparing. And when you have a karma person that's neurotic, they're really almost impossible to deal with, because if you try to help them, they'll interpret that as an attack. And if you don't help them, they'll interpret that as you're being selfish and ignoring them. So you can't win. Either way you try, they're going to feel like they just don't trust what you're doing, basically. So karma family is associated with green, summer. It's a karma family people might not particularly enjoy meditation as much as, say, like a Buddha family. A Buddha family person would take the meditation like a duck in water, but a karma person might have to work a little harder to do the meditation, because you see that the one is expressing or fulfilling their wakefulness in a different way. You see that? For a karma person, they're actually fulfilling their enlightened, awakened energy by doing something. A Buddha family person would never have that experience. Never. They don't want to do anything. They just want to be. They just want to sit and be spacious. A karma person doesn't have any fulfillment out of just being and sitting still. You see what I'm saying? So they have a different sensibility about what enlightenment even is. But again, the karma energy is, in one way or another, a kind of strategy for avoiding that spaciousness, because that's uncomfortable and irritating. So they get busy doing. It gets very busy, the karma energy. And then the last one is, well, that's it. That's all of them. You get to the heaven realm and we're back in the Buddha family. The Buddha family is very taken with absorption and a kind of spacing out kind of energy, and can be caught up in that. So those are the 5 wisdom energies. And in terms of our model here at the Zen Center of shared stewardship, we actually can also associate the families with organizational forms or activities. So we often, in the shared stewardship model, the circles that would be in the Buddha family would have to do with contemplation, meditation. Circles that have to do with study would be in the Vajra family. Circles that have to do with fundraising or carrying on, holding the lineage would be Ratna. Ratna is a very interesting energy that way because the Tibetans feel that, not Ananda, but who was the first disciple of the Buddha? Kashapa? Mahakashapa. The Tibetans feel that Mahakashapa was Ratna, and so they associate the Ratna family with a kind of holding the lineage. And Ratna is very good at fundraising. I always use this example when we first moved to Chicago, Sensei was working for Feeding America, a food bank organization. And I used to go to the food bank conferences, and those people were Ratna. They were Christian business people, and they were impressive. They were committed to feeding people, and they got it done. They knew how to raise money. They had a kind of confidence that was really attractive. They had a kind of integrity about the work they did, and that there were a lot of Ratna people in that network, and they were impressive. So if you've got a nonprofit and you want to raise money, hopefully you have a few Ratna people on your board or somewhere, because they like to schmooze and you get, they're just good fundraisers. They know how to collect money and keep it. The other families don't know how to do that. And then the Padma circles would have to do more with relationships or creativity. And then the final circles that are in the karma family have more to do with social action. Because if you've ever actually done any grassroots organizing, you will appreciate that you need a lot of that karma energy to organize and put things together, systems together. It requires an enormous amount of karma type of energy to get anything done in the world. Vajra people will just stand around and talk about it, but the karma people will actually get the work. The Vajra people will be busy creating a theory about social action, but the karma people they don't need a theory to get the work. They just get the work. So that's this teaching of the 5 Buddha families, and so that's that. So maybe we could have questions or any discussion about any of this.
What's the negative for karma?
Oh, the negative for karma is paranoia. Karma is associated with the jealous God realm. Very, very speedy kind of eyes behind the back kind of energy. Easily gets paranoid. Yeah.
Well, that was fantastic. Yeah, I always love learning about this stuff,
Yeah.
especially having it's actually kind of a gift, I would say, to have a blank page, to come in here and just absorb all of it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of interesting, and I think you mentioned this too, but the 5 families that we just talked about, I'm pretty sure I know which one I am, but I think what's interesting too, though, is it seems like all these energies are within us.
Yes.
To some extent.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Because I was about to say, I mean, although I identify, I think, with one, I still feel like I can relate to and understand the others. Okay.
Yes, I think it's important to get that you're actually using all the energies, and you might even, like if you're, you have to do something, you have to go to work and do something, you would actually activate the karma energy to do that. If you were studying something, you might activate your Vajra energy to be more precise with something. So I think we use all the energies, but you still have a primary style that will be most comfortable to you.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then sometimes there's a family that you'll find that you don't relate to, and that feels a little threatening. That's possible as well. But anyway.
I was about to say, yeah, that's really, that's very interesting. I never thought of it like that. And then the other thing I want to say too is it's interesting whenever I have someone ask me how this went, I'm going to say that, well, I sat down and I became a pig.
Hey, what a testimonial. We gotta put that on the website. Joe sat down and became a pig. He was transformed into a pig at the end of the 7-day Sesshin.
Came to be enlightened, I left as a pig.
I came in as a human being, I left as a pig. Totally transformed.
Yeah, that was great. Oh, I love that. I love thinking like that. We're all pigs.
Yeah, there was a school, I think it's the Kargyu school, which is what the school that Trungpa was in. The Tibetans, that's the school that did mostly meditated a lot. Like the Dalai Lama school is a much more scholastic kind of school, and they're very intellectual in study. But the Kargyus just sat, and so they were known as the lineage of pigs because they just sat. Maybe they could be the donkeys too. Who knows?
I never thought like that before, but now, now I'm gonna enjoy being a pig.
Yeah, so many more things to entertain yourself with when you're meditating.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Picks?
Hi, thank you for that. It's a great refresher. I haven't, the 5 Buddha families. I'd love to post my painting about that. I've painted that.
Oh.
But what I wanted to say, I'm particularly appreciating it just because I do recognize myself in the hungry ghost realm is to that, like many people, needing to fill up the space. And because I've just moved and sold a studio, my second, well, it was my first home, but I've sold it. So all of my belongings then have to fit into now one place. And so I have too much and I have to let go and pass it on, give it up. Well, that's kind of hard for the hungry ghost, I'm finding like that, well, I acquired each thing because I was attracted to it for a reason, or think I need it. So when June was asking, what are you willing to give up to be free? It feels like more awareness of my need to kind of shelter myself with this, with objects, and understand the anxiety around spaciousness, I guess. That just to let go of things and freely pass them on. And and my husband and I want to give them all to the right people. And I have all these boxes in my room, and my partner, he's very karma. Just put it out on the boulevard, the whole thing. Right?
Yeah, Sensei is just like you.
But
She wants to make sure we give the thing to the right person. And I'm just saying, just take it to Goodwill or put it in the alley. Whoever needs it, they'll pick it up,
that's right. There we have. So you're familiar with the process here. Anyway, thank you for the reminder of, I've always known that I was Ratna and loving to fundraise and all these various things, but seeing the downside more, more clearly. So thank you for that. I just totally appreciate my work in the next before next session. I could kind of lighten the load here.
Yeah, we had to downsize when we had the house here in Oak Park. We collected all kinds, because we had a basement, which is deadly. Once you have a basement, you just put everything down there and then you don't. And it was hard. But actually it was surprisingly refreshing to get rid of a lot of that stuff and eventually even sell the house, because you realize that the things that you possess kind of weigh you down. And when you let go of them, it's a kind of freedom
Yes.
to move on.
Yes, I remember visiting a dear friend, and she was in hospice, and I was probably maybe a week or so before she died. And I had reconnected with her because she bought some paintings, and she actually just gave them back to me. And I went to thank her, and she had just this little windowsill, and she said, "See these objects? That's all I have left." And she was sitting there she said, "I can't tell you how good this feels. And if I'd known, I would have done this years ago. This is so liberating and it's so wonderful, you know." And so I do remember that, but I have to keep it in mind a little more seriously, I guess. But I remember her saying it.
Yeah, if you fill up the space with too much furniture and you're in a small apartment or something, you'll be very claustrophobic and not even realize it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually remember too, it just hit me that there was one question I did want to ask. When you were talking, you had mentioned earlier that part of what the families all have in common is that they want to avoid this spaciousness that's associated with enlightenment. And I wanted to understand that more, because I don't understand like what's so irritating about this spaciousness, and what is this spaciousness?
Boring.
Oh, it's just the boredom that, okay.
Nothing going on there. No entertainment, no frivolity, nothing.
I see. Okay.
Vanilla. Not even vanilla. It's like worse than vanilla. It's like doesn't even have a flavor.
Okay, so that's the cause of all this.
Well, it is a kind of insight you can have that the space is irritating, and we all get this when we sit meditation. Especially when you started the Sesshin, you were a lot more fidgeting and moving around, and now you're much more settled, right?
Yeah.
So as you sit and move into the practice, you become more comfortable with the spaciousness, and you find it's actually a relief to be in the spaciousness. It's very relaxing and calming and grounding, but there's a part of us that just fights that and is constantly looking for some kind of frivolity or entertainment or distraction or something to hang on to avoid having to just be in the space. We find it highly irritating, generally speaking.
I see. Yeah, that completely makes sense.
So I want to really emphasize that that's just a human thing. It's not like that's a serious neurosis. That's just what we do as human beings, is we tend to avoid the spaciousness. And part of practice, I think, is learning to be with that. And then the session ends and you go home and you do it all over again. And we create these styles of avoiding, of distracting ourselves from that in a way. But that's not all bad. The style that you have to avoid that also is its own kind of wisdom. So it's important not to be too dualistic about this. So for instance, a karma person that can't stand spaciousness may go out and start a nonprofit that helps feed hundreds of people. Now, you can't say that's a bad, that was neurotic because she wouldn't sit on a meditation cushion. That person fulfilled their bodhisattva vow by going out and using their energy to help people. And all the families are like that. So it's kind of ironic that even though the style is associated with the way it avoids spaciousness, the style that emerges is also a wisdom that doesn't exist for instance, for the Buddha family. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it goes so well with what you were mentioning too before. You mentioned at the very start that negativity is often where we draw this. It's like a source of wisdom, of productivity, or not productivity, but a source of wisdom. And,
Yes.
and I think that was a perfect segue into talking about that.
Yeah, the negativity is the juice. It is the wisdom. So we're not getting rid of the negativity. We're actually, by working with it, by sitting with it on the cushion, we're transmuting it and finding that a wisdom energy is emerging within that, not outside of it, but the energy of wisdom is emerging because we're working with that negativity, but we're not getting rid of it particularly. We're still going to be irritated and angry and spaced out and seductive. And the thing about Padma, which is great, is the neurosis of Padma is that it's so good at seducing. It can seduce for the sake of seduction, which is very neurotic and causes a lot of suffering. But when that negativity is transmuted, it becomes seduction for the sake of communicating. Very different kind of quality about it. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So all the families are like that. There's a kind of, if you think of Ratna can be really claustrophobic. I had a very good friend that Sensei and I knew was a sculptress in Venice, California, and she was very Ratna, big. Wonderful artist, and she was very nurturing and motherly. But when she was neurotic, you did not want to be around her. She was just totally over possessive and consuming, and she would just be too much. So all the families are like that. Every family has a side that's too much, or a side that is dysfunctional. But that's part of the wisdom. That's the great part of this teaching, is that we could actually own it. We could have some humor about it. Even we could say, we could be a little lighter with ourselves. We could be a little bit more forgiving. We don't have to be perfect. No one's perfect. Forget about being perfect. It doesn't exist. There's no perfect anything in the Buddha family. There's just your shit and your wisdom. Your shitting wisdom.
Oh my God. Yeah. I love the reframing that goes on.
Yeah. I don't know where that came from.
I'm hearing so many things I'll probably only hear once in my life.
I hope we're still not recording this. That's all right. No one will listen this far into it, so they'll be distracted way before they get to that one.
Oh yeah, I really do. I do love this idea of, or especially that I feel like I've learned after this lesson that our strengths and our weaknesses are often, they're very kind of like intertwined almost.
Yes.
And I love that idea. Wherever you find a weakness, the strength is probably right around the corner, and vice versa.
No one could be as seductive as a Padma person if they're not Padma. No one can be as claustrophobic as a Ratna person if you're not Ratna. We don't have that. A person that's not Ratna doesn't have that gift. So the negativity is the gift also. And that's a beautiful thing, I think, about the teaching, is you're not running away from your negativity or your pain. You're actually, part of the practice is telling you over and over again, bear witness to your pain, bear witness to your irritation. Don't avoid it, don't run away from it, don't deny it. And the strange transmutation, the mystery in the mutation that happens in practice is that, and it's a little counterintuitive, is that when you face the shit, whatever you think the shit is, it transmutes into something that's wonderful. But you couldn't have the wonderful thing without the shit too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
they go together.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that. The shit and the strength together.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, but we don't want to get stuck in the shit, because then we start acting it out and it causes suffering. So part of the practice is you're bearing witness to it, which is a way of being with the negativity or the strong emotion in a way that moves you through it. If you just wallow in the negativity, then it's just samsara, and it's a lot of suffering. So at the same time, we're saying the negativity is part of the wisdom. We're not saying you can just do anything you want and act it out, because you will discover that that actually creates a lot of suffering too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The Buddha families are helpful to me as I'm sitting here reminding myself that there are different energies.
Uh-huh.
And it helps me not fall into feeling inadequate, because, okay, I'm not a fundraiser. I couldn't go out and do that. Oh, that's okay. That's not my energy.
Yeah.
And I also am not very good at getting things done. You know, that the person that would be, you know, like the karma.
Yeah.
So if you have, if there's a desire for something to happen, if there's a project, there's different energies.
Yeah.
And if that's not my energy, it doesn't mean that I'm failing. It's that I need somebody else who has that energy.
Yeah. Delegate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or to delegate, but so that there's a sense of self-acceptance too,
Yeah.
to say, well, okay, man, look at that person who's like, you know, the seductive person, like, you know, and then, well, that's not me. Or the person that can organize,
Yeah.
and just do.
Yeah.
And of course, they're going to have their ways that are going to be maddening to me and irritating to me, but also somebody to work with.
Yeah.
With whatever energy I have.
Well, I think
and that's really helpful to me, because I think I have that tendency to what is it I'm not able to do, and to look at them, wow, look at how they can do that. Well,
yeah, well, when you view things this way, you start delegating to the people that are going to do it better than you, because they're a different family. I remember working with the Peacemaker, the Buddhist Peace Fellowship in 2004. I went with a group down to Jacksonville. It was during the election, because in 2000, I think it was 2000 that Bush was elected, wasn't it? And there was a whole scandal about people not making it to the voting polls in places like Jacksonville. So we went down there to help people get to the polls to vote. And we were in this very poor section of Jacksonville, Black community, a church, and I remember the day we walked in, we got there about 5 days before the election, because we had to organize a lot of stuff. And we walk into this room with computers strewn all over the place, nothing hooked up, just total chaos. And I was with this lawyer who happened to be very calm, had a lot of calm energy. She's kind of irritating to me. She wasn't nice. You know, she was kind of edgy, and I realized I'm just looking around the room looking like, what the heck? How are we going to get this done in 5? And so I delegated it to her. I said, why don't you organize everything? She just whipped that thing into shape within a day, you know, and if I had tried to do it, it would have taken me 5 days, and I still wouldn't have done it as good as she had labels on everything, and it's all organized, everything, where you put things. It's like, how did she do that? I don't know if she did it, but that's the beauty of this model, is you start to see that, well, we don't have to do everything well. We do a few things well, and then someone else has a different style. They're going to do that better than I ever will, and that's great, because then we can collaborate. We can work together and use each other's strengths.
And also, it's helpful for me to realize that based on my style, however my style is, I'm going to drive other people crazy.
Oh, yeah.
I might not go like, what? What's their problem? Well, it's my
Yeah.
style that drives another style crazy.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah,
That's guaranteed.
that's kind of fun and maddening at the same time.
So you don't have to take it personally.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's just gonna happen. Yeah, you're gonna drive other family styles crazy.
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I think that's, yeah, picks?
I just wanted to say, when you said the fear of spaciousness, also is part of that is maybe, could it be loneliness? It's that empty and
Yes, yeah, I think the loneliness goes with it, and people experience that different ways, but we all tend to get busy in our particular styles, and we're all filling up the space in our own way. And part of I always say that the ability to meditate is your ability to be alone with yourself. And I think many people find that threatening. And they did an experiment at the University of Virginia, I believe, which I now always talk about when I teach meditation. They had people come into a room, and they gave them a choice whether they could just hang out by themselves in the room or get a mild electric shock. Yeah, and about 35% of the people chose the mild electric shock. And I tell that because I want as an example of why meditation is so hard for people, because we're kind of afraid of being alone. The stillness and the spaciousness is being alone, and there's a fear of that. So people do it all the time. As soon as they get home from work, they walk into their empty apartment. The first thing they do is turn on the TV, turn on something, because you want to fill up that space with something.
yeah, I've understood it as a fear of loneliness as well as spaciousness, and that's a form of spaciousness, the way I've understood it. So,
And for a Padma person, that might be doubly bad. Padma, they don't like to be alone. They like people. I think the interesting kind of thing, though, is that the being spacious and alone with ourselves through meditation actually brings out the quality of your unique family energy at the same time. It's kind of counterintuitive that you find that that energy is emerging in you as you trust the spaciousness. Funny. I think it's time for lunch, huh? So the schedule for the rest of the day will be just like we'll have afternoon sitting or practice of immediacy, sutra reading at 4:30, and then at 7 we'll gather together at 7 and do a council circle. And those of you that, if you did practice of immediacy, you can share. We'll have a first circle where anyone that wants to share what they did can do that. And then we'll do a straight council where we'll share stories about whatever came up for us during this retreat. And that will be the end of the Sesshin. Okay? So if you know anyone that was in the Sesshin that's not here, they're also obviously invited to the council if they want to come. Huh? It'd be nice to just remind them that they're included. It's often they don't come because they feel like they're out of the retreat, but they're all invited. Anyone that was part-time.